Happy President's Day 2022. It's Monday, March 21st, President's Day. Do you say Happy President's Day to Obama, Bush, Biden, Trump, like it's their birthday? I'm being serious. I don't know. I know we celebrate President's Day because of Washington and Lincoln, but do they get presents on President's Day? I don't know. Does Michelle get Barack a card? Is this the one day of the year Melania lets Donald crawl on top of her? Does Biden get an extra Jell-O cup with his dinner tonight? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But let's set aside those questions because we have serious matters to discuss. And I'm going to get right down to the main topic, Russia and Ukraine. Later on, I do want to respond to some comments from my last episode entitled, Would I Vote for Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders? A lot of downloads from that episode. A lot of downloads. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Some people seem to enjoy the little game, if you will, the questions on leadership, rating each person on leadership characteristics. People enjoyed that. Some people posted and shared their scores with me. So thank you for that. There were some other people, though. There were some other people who did not respond the way I would have liked them to. So stay tuned for that. If you enjoy listening to me get really ticked off and condescending and all fired up over nothing, you'll want to stay tuned to the end of the show for that. But let's start off with Russia and Ukraine. So what does Vladimir Putin want? Why is he going to invade Ukraine, or it would appear has invaded Ukraine? Now, I'm certainly no expert on Russo-European geopolitics. I could sit here and just make things up that sound plausible, like they do in the media sometimes. Like, hey, why are people quitting their jobs? Oh, because they're worried about COVID. Well, how are they paying their bills? You can't just quit your job because you're afraid of something. You think the women on The View aren't afraid of sitting next to Whoopi Goldberg? She could snap at any moment. But you just can't quit your job. You got to have money to pay your bills, to pay your rent, to pay your car payment, to buy food. So they don't have the answer, so they just make one up. I'm not going to do that here in regards to Putin and Ukraine. I don't know why he's going to invade. I could speculate, and I'll do a little bit of that later. But first, I'm going to defer to the experts. Let's break down, let's give a recap on how we got here. All right? Russia has been amassing troops around Ukraine since last year. There are about 150,000 troops along with armored vehicles, artillery, everything you need to start a good war. In response, NATO countries have put troops on standby and deployed battalions, planes, and ships. The U.S. sent 3,000 troops to Poland, bringing the total number of troops from the U.S. sent to Europe in response to 5,000. So, back in 1991, Ukraine voted for independence from the Soviet Union. They joined other countries like Georgia, Kazakhstan, Estonia, Armenia, and Belarus, effectively ending the Soviet Union as a world power. Now, as these countries became independent, NATO moved in to bring them into the Eastern European fold. So these former Soviet states said, we don't want to be with Russia anymore. NATO moved in and said, well, come be with us then. In 2004, NATO added Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. In 2008, NATO announced it intended to offer membership to Ukraine, at which point Putin said, that's all I can stand. I can't stand no more. Putin sees Ukraine as part of Russia. In his mind, they share the same language, culture, and political views. Now, some in the eastern part of Ukraine agree with Putin. They do feel like they are Russians, while some people in the western part of Ukraine prefer a closer relationship with Europe. In 2014, Ukrainians who wanted a closer relationship with the European Union held massive protests and forced out the then president, who was essentially a Putin puppet, put in place by Putin, the president of Ukraine, they forced him out. The pro-European people within Ukraine forced out that Putin puppet in 2014. Russia responded by taking the part of Ukraine called Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula, and basically ginning up a civil war in the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine. So when you hear about war in Ukraine, that's the war they're talking about in this tiny little section of Ukraine in the eastern region, Donbas. Separatists that are loyal or sympathetic to Russia fighting against other Ukrainians who don't want Russia meddling in their affairs. They want to be independent from Russia. Almost 14,000 people have died and 1.5 million have been displaced as a result. So you get it? So the Soviet Union collapses, NATO moves in, the former Soviet states, Putin's pissed. I guess it would be like if Texas and Florida declared their independence from the U.S. We can only hope. And they entered into an alliance with Russia, China, and North Korea. That would be uncomfortable. That would be uncomfortable. If Florida and Texas said, you know what, we're our own independent countries now. We're declaring our independence, and we're going to align ourselves with Russia, China, and North Korea, that would be uncomfortable. So Putin claims NATO expanding into Ukraine is uncomfortable. It's a threat to Russia. Last December, he told the U.S. and NATO he wanted guarantees Ukraine would never be part of NATO. And they need to roll back their military footprint in Eastern and Central Europe, which ain't happening. And therein lies the stalemate. Putin sees the U.S. and NATO as putting missiles at his doorstep, and the U.S. is clear, we will put missiles wherever we darn well please. It's our obligation as a member of NATO to protect our fellow members in that area. And if that means putting missiles, that means putting missiles. So that's the summary from the experts, with a little color commentary put in by me. But here's the commentary from a non-expert, from me. Putin wants to take back Ukraine because he can. Because he can. Maybe it's his ego. Maybe he needs conflict with the West to stay in power. Maybe he wants to build another pipeline to Europe across Ukraine. Maybe he really does want to reassemble the old Soviet Union. I don't know. Again, it's all speculation. But the bottom line is Putin has wanted to do this for years. He's meddled in other former Soviet states like Georgia, Belarus for years. He's held influence in some of those old countries for years. And so invading Ukraine right now seems nothing more to me than his desire meeting an opportunity. He sees the opportunity. He wants to invade Ukraine because he can. I don't know that he sees a significant downside to invading Ukraine. And so I'm not as concerned with the reason why Putin is doing what he's doing as I am concerned with the response to what Putin is doing. Since when does the world sit back and just allow one country to amass troops on the border of another sovereign country? Since when do we just sit back and just allow that to happen without any punishment taking place while it's happening, before the invasion? Why are you waiting till after the invasion to punish Putin? I don't get that. In addition to that, what I see going on is like the movie Die Hard. Shame on you if you haven't seen Die Hard, great movie. But I think back to the movie Die Hard. In the movie Die Hard, criminals took over this big high-rise office building because they wanted to steal millions of dollars in bearer bonds that the company had in the safe. So the FBI shows up. They assume the criminals are terrorists, and terrorists must have demands. Let's find out what the terrorist demands are, and let's pretend that we're trying to meet the terrorist demands. Well, the criminals weren't terrorists. They were just thieves looking to steal money. Professor Snape from Harry Potter said, let the FBI fumble around out there. It's all part of the plan. Steve Urkel's next-door neighbor said to Bruce Willis, these guys have got the FBI's terrorist playbook, and they're playing it step by step. In other words, the criminals knew exactly how the FBI was going to respond. Putin knows exactly how the world is going to respond. Oh, we're going to put sanctions on them. We're going to put sanctions on them. But not the harshest of sanctions that we can put. Oh, no, we'll start with limited sanctions because we got to leave room for negotiation. Putin knows this. He knows what the response is going to be. He's counting on it. It'll give him time to make his way as far across the country as he can get, as far across the country of Ukraine as he can get, while the UN and NATO draw up declarations and have emergency meetings and get together to declare that they condemn the actions of Russia in the strongest terms possible. While all this is going on, Putin will be making his way across Ukraine as they vote on sanctions in Congress and vote on what to do at the UN and vote on what to do at NATO. And then the sanctions, when they finally kick in, well, it takes time. It takes time to feel the pain from sanctions. If in some way the sanctions hurt Russia's oil production or oil sales, well, that could take months before it affects his economy, before he feels the pain in his economy. He'll be halfway across Ukraine by then. And so worst case scenario, if the pain becomes too great for Putin, well, he stops there and he negotiates a ceasefire. Well, now he controls Ukraine. Halfway across Ukraine, getting to the capital, Kyiv, of Ukraine, is controlling Ukraine. That's the worst case scenario that'll happen. So yeah, Putin will invade Ukraine because he can, because there's no serious deterrent. Were there any deterrents after he annexed Crimea? You notice Putin's demands that he's making right now to not invade Ukraine don't include, let me back in the G8. Russia got kicked out of the G8 after he annexed Crimea. But he doesn't care. He doesn't care because he's not treated like he's not still a member. Putin, we're kicking you out of the G8. Oh, really? Okay. Well, do you still want to negotiate arms treaties with me? Yes, we still want to do that. Do you still need my help getting into space? Yes, we still need your help. Do you still need my help negotiating with countries like North Korea? Yes, we still need your help on that. From Obama to Trump, Putin only got stronger, not weaker after sanctions. From both the Obama and Trump administrations, he's only gotten stronger. Now you got Mr. Can't Keep a Secret Joe Biden has announced to the world, we will not be sending troops to Ukraine because they aren't a NATO member. We are not obligated to do so, which, by the way, I agree with. I just don't know why he has to announce it. So if I'm Putin and the worst I have to fear is sanctions, limited sanctions to start, I invade, I take as much territory as I can, as fast as I can, until I feel real punishment. That's the deal. That's what we're facing. So, what do we do, Mr. Smarty Pants, you say? Anyone can state the problem. What's the solution? First of all, don't call me Smarty Pants. Second, the solution is obvious. There is no solution to preventing Putin from invading Ukraine, unless, of course, you want to declare Russia a terrorist state and treat Russia the way we treated Iraq when they invaded Kuwait. That ain't going to happen. So we are where we are. And I hate to open this old wound, but I have no choice. Afghanistan. Now hear me out. I'm not going to relitigate Afghanistan. I did 3 shows. Go listen if you want to hear my thoughts on Afghanistan. All I will say is in one of the Afghanistan episodes, I pleaded with Joe Biden to stop saying there is no strategic reason for us to stay in Afghanistan. I hated hearing Biden say that because I felt while I was okay with leaving Afghanistan, how we did it, when we did it, was very much in our strategic interest. Go back and listen to what I said. I said the strategic interest is our standing in the world, how our allies view us, how our enemies view us. Anyone that watched that chaotic, whatever you want to call it, exit from Afghanistan, while heroic by our troops, it was a mess. It was a mess. It looked like, and in my opinion, Biden made it look like we had lost a war and we were running away. And that was not the case. That was not the case. But that's the way it appeared. That's our strategic interest, not looking like that, particularly when you're supposed to be the most powerful country in the world. Now, let me be very clear here, as Biden would say. Let me be very clear. Because when you start talking about Afghanistan, people immediately go to that argument that no one's having. The argument is not staying in Afghanistan. The argument is how you leave Afghanistan. It's how you end that war. Why does the most powerful country in the world not look like the most powerful country in the world right now? Why does the most powerful man in the world not look like the most powerful man in the world right now? Isn't that what we always say about the United States president? You're the most powerful person in the world. But why is that not the case? Why did Joe Biden allow our military to appear to be weaker than the Taliban? Why? Oh, we have to leave by such and such a date. The Taliban told us we have to. Our only option would be to stay and commit tens and thousands of more American troops. Okay. So if you want to say it that way, you say it in the way of we're going to leave because if we stay, we're going to end up killing a lot more people. Because that's what would happen. If you commit tens and thousands of our American men and women in the military, they're going to end up killing a whole lot of people. And so you say, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We could, but we don't want to. As opposed to the way Biden made it look, the Taliban told us get out, so we got to get out. And we don't want to keep fighting because we'll lose. Does that have anything to do with what Putin is doing right now? I don't know. I have no idea. Like I said, he's been doing it for years. It's nothing new. But is he seeing an opportunity? Is he seeing an opportunity because of the leadership in America right now? I don't know. But what I do know is there should be fear and uncertainty all around Putin. And I don't see it. I don't see any fear and uncertainty in Putin or anyone around him. And there should be all around the people he trusts, the people he relies on. Now think back. Think back. You're not going to like this. When Donald Trump was president and our military carried out a strike on an Iranian general inside Iraq, everyone on the left lost their minds. Oh, my goodness. Trump has lost it. Trump's about to take us to war with Iran. The left was besides themselves. How could Trump order an attack like that? But guess what? It kind of settled Iran down. Remember back, Iran was attacking oil fields in Saudi Arabia. They were causing all sorts of trouble in that area, conducting and financing terrorist attacks. Now, I'm not going to say it all came to an end, but it definitely quieted down. After that general had a missile fall on his head, that Iranian general. And I'm not at all minimizing the fact there was a response from Iran and some of our soldiers were injured. What I'm saying is there was not the kind of all-out war response some people were claiming was going to happen on the left. And it was the unpredictable nature of that attack. Who even knew anyone was paying attention to that guy? Nobody knew who that Iranian general was. But it put a little fear and uncertainty into some people in Iran. It had to have. If you attack America, if you threaten America, if you hijack our cargo ships, if you kidnap our people, you notice we haven't had a cargo ship hijacked since our SEALs straightened out that issue. So unfortunately, we don't live in a world where flowery statesman-like speeches solve problems. We don't live in a world where Security Council meetings and condemning in the strongest terms solve these kinds of problems. Sometimes a half-crazed president who asked the question, why do we have nuclear bombs if we don't use them? Sometimes that's what you need. Obviously, no one wants war. No one wants a nuclear war. Not what I'm saying. Don't get twisted. What I'm saying here is the crazy, the uncertainty, the fear that some people need to feel from America. That's all I'm saying. Somewhere in between, why do we have nuclear bombs if we don't use them? And I told Putin to cut it out. Remember that from Obama? Yeah, Vladimir Putin, he was meddling in our elections, and I went and I told him, cut it out. Oh, did you, Barack? Is that what you did? You told him, cut it out? Did you even add or else at the end of it? So people asked, oh, so what would you do differently? If you criticize Biden, what would you be doing differently in this situation? What I would be doing differently is I wouldn't tell you what I would be doing differently. That's what I would do differently. Stop telling everyone what you're going to do, Joe Biden. Joe Biden's probably never been in a street fight. That's his problem. It's street fighting 101. When you get into a street fight, or you are potentially going to get in a street fight, the first thing you do is act crazy. Don't be predictable. Act crazy. You rip your shoes off. You rip your shirt off. You start punching yourself in your own head. You start talking gibberish, saying all kinds of crazy things in hopes that the other person will think you're crazy and back down. And if they do, you go, ooh, thank goodness I avoided that fight. And if they don't, you throw everything you got at them. Everything. 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 You don't commit a couple thousand troops and tell them don't shoot at anybody unless they shoot at you first, and then wonder why you can't win a war. Let me wrap up by yelling at some people who apparently can't handle a question. Condescending alert. Condescending alert. I'm about to get condescending. Heaven forbid you should allow your sensitive ears to hear a discussion about voting for Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders. Now, I knew when I did the show, people would have firm opinions formed one way or the other. But to not even listen because you didn't like the title, as one person on Twitter told me, I don't like that title. How is that even a question? How is that even a decision that you have to make? Getting upset by the very nature of the question is the problem. And trust me, these are the same people who think other people are closed-minded. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I hate the same mundane conversations over and over again. It's why I hate running into people from high school. So, what have you been up to? Just work. Just work. How about you? Yeah, same here. Just work. You married? Any kids? Yeah, 10 years, 2 kids. What about you? Yep, 9 years, no kids. You live in the area? Yeah, bought a house about 2 years ago. How about you? I'm renting right now, but looking to buy. Okay, well, great seeing you. You too. How many times can I be forced into that conversation? I started telling people I run into from my past, yeah, you know what? I'm fresh out of jail. And I asked them, do you know where I can get a gun quick and cheap? It immediately ends the conversation. Don't you want to hear something different, something interesting? Wouldn't it be kind of cool to run into somebody you were good friends in high school with and they're wearing a MAGA cap? If you're on the left, wouldn't that be kind of interesting? Wouldn't that be more of an interesting conversation? But no, just tell me what I want to hear. Don't give me anything that's going to be thought-provoking or make me think, make me challenge myself to think. Just tell me what I want to hear. Biden sucks. Hillary's a spy. Trump sucks. He's going to destroy the Republican Party if he keeps on talking. Inflation is a conspiracy to take down Biden before the midterms. Inflation is a conspiracy to make you more dependent on government. You go to Twitter, search midterms, and you'll see one tweet back and forth, liberal, conservative, all basically saying the same thing. Something is a conspiracy to affect the midterms. Each side, all saying the same thing. Something is a conspiracy, whatever they choose at the time. I don't know. It's different every time. But whatever they choose to be a conspiracy is a conspiracy to affect the midterms. Search midterms on Twitter, and that's what you'll find. One tweet after another. Now, I was on Twitter, and I saw a tweet from a very large, so I assume popular, left-leaning organization that tweeted out a video of some young guy, probably got way more followers, way more listeners, way more viewers than me. Way more. I would just bet way more. And he's sitting there. It's a video. I guess he takes calls on his show, and he has someone on the phone who makes some just idiotic, deranged comments about gays and about slavery. The person on the call says we should bring back slavery. And the host immediately, you see, that's why you're a Trump supporter. You're the perfect Trump supporter because of a statement like that. We should bring back slavery. And then the clip ends. It just ends. I don't know. I don't have the time to look up that show to see what was said after that. I'm guessing probably nothing. I'm guessing he probably ended the call with the guy. Because what more could there be to discuss? Someone just said, I think we should bring back slavery. Well, call me crazy, but I want to know why the person thinks that. I want to know what their thought process is. Finally, someone has said something interesting on the radio. You want to bring back slavery? I'm going to need you to clarify that. I'm going to need you to expand on that. Is it expand or expound? Whichever. I want to hear your thoughts. Is this a thought out point of view that you have, or are you just saying it to be provocative in the moment? Are you just saying it to get under my skin? I want to know. If this is a thought out point, I want to hear the thoughts. Bring back slavery. Now, I'd be willing to bet you money if the host of that show said, well, what do you mean? What is your thought process on bringing back slavery? The guy probably would have said, well, not slavery as we remember it per se. What I mean is people should be allowed to work for whatever they want to work for. That's probably what the guy would have said, because I've heard similar things to this. These are libertarian types who say there should be no minimum wage. If someone wants to work for $2 an hour, they should be allowed to work for $2 an hour. If someone wants to work for free, they should be allowed to work for free. Oh, okay, I see your point of view. Here's my counter. Go do it. Go do it. Who's stopping you? If that's the way you see things, if you want to work for free, go work for free. Start a business, register a business, get a tax ID number, and go out and start cutting lawns for free. If you want to paint houses for $2 an hour, register a business, get a tax ID, and go out and start bidding on painting houses for $2 an hour. Who's stopping you? I'd love to hear the counter to that. I'd love to hear that conversation, that discussion. I wouldn't want to just have a conversation with the caller who wants to bring back slavery. I want to have a conversation with the host and ask him, what makes you think that every Trump supporter is racist or homophobic? What makes you think that? Why do you think that? You don't think these people had these same crazy thoughts before Donald Trump was elected? You don't think they're going to have these same crazy thoughts when Trump is long gone? What do you think? Trump made people more racist? How does that happen? You're either racist or you're not. How do you get more racist? You think Donald Trump did that? Sure, Donald Trump exposed some old wounds. Donald Trump maybe emboldened some people. But I don't know that he made people become racist that weren't racist. I don't know that he did that. But every Trump supporter, every person that voted for Donald Trump, no. Some people truly thought Donald Trump was being outrageous, but he would become serious and presidential if he got elected. Some people believed he was a deal maker and he would run the country like a business. And they felt the country needed to be run like a business. He would fix our trade imbalance. He would stop the U.S. from being the country always paying the lion's share of problems around the world. He would stop us from giving foreign aid to countries that hate us or take it and waste it. There are people now, and there were people who don't like that they see two different standards when it comes to masks. They have to wear a mask, but then they see the same politicians on TV mandating it, constantly being caught without a mask. Walmart and Target could stay open, but JCPenney couldn't. You could go to a Black Lives Matter rally without a mask, but a small town restaurant or gym had to remain closed. The riots in Portland, Oregon were reported on differently than the riots at the Capitol. There's no question about that. Two different groups of people, two different riots for two different reasons, but they were reported on quite differently in the media. One was condemned as an insurrection, and one wasn't, even though the riots in Portland took place against government buildings. Now, none of that has to do with racism or homophobia. So why paint an entire group with that brush? You know, I'm not going to use the term white supremacy anymore. I used that one time in a show. In my show, Listen to This If You Want to End Extremism. I was listening back to it. I used the term white supremacy. And it hit me. I said, I shouldn't have used that term. It's an outdated term. It's not fair to an entire group of people. So I just gave you a whole list of things that Trump supporters may believe. And none of them had to do with race or anything else. And I'm not saying I agree with any or all of those things. What I'm saying is, I know them because I listen to them. I listen to what they say. We keep hearing people say, oh, the country is so divided. The country is so divided. We don't talk to one another anymore. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Nobody listens. The same way that person on Twitter didn't want to listen to my show because the headline offended him, because the title offended him. No one listens. How many times have you gotten into a conversation with someone from the other side and you're talking and you know they're not listening? They're not listening. They're just waiting for their turn to talk. They cut you off in the middle of a sentence because they don't want you to make your point, and they're just waiting for their turn to talk. They're not listening. We're not listening to one another anymore. We're not listening to shows on cable, on radio, not following people on social media, not listening to people who make us uncomfortable, who say something that we don't want to hear, who tell us that we're wrong. We want to be told we're right all the time. 100% of the time, we want to be told we're right. I don't. I'm not better than anybody. I'm not trying to make myself out to be better than anybody. It took me a while to figure this out. I want to be told I'm wrong sometimes about saying white supremacy or anything else, because then I'll know I'm normal. I'll know I'm in the comparison group. I'm in the control group that hasn't gone crazy. I'm someone you can measure crazy against. And so are you. So are you probably, if you listen to this show. You get it. You get that you can both at the same time understand and sympathize with some of the complaints of the people in the truckers' protest, the truckers' convoy, and at the same time say, but what about the rule of law? What about the rule of law? That's what the Republican Party is supposed to be about. The conservatives are supposed to be about, the rule of law. And so while I sympathize with your complaints, yeah, you can't do that. You got to be moved out of there. Even at the same time as I say, I don't like Trudeau with these emergency powers, taking away civil liberties. All of those thoughts can exist. You don't have to have a firm answer, right or wrong, one way or the other, on every issue. You can see it from all sides, but only if you listen to it from all sides. Listen to it from all sides. And you'll see it from all sides. Why is that important? Why is that so important? I'll wrap up by telling you. I'm not going to give you a spoiler on who I said I would vote for in my Trump versus Bernie show. But if Bernie Sanders ever did become president, all of the things he says he would do to reform Wall Street, he would never be able to do. Never. He'd never get anything done. He'd be the worst president, probably, at reforming Wall Street. And Wall Street needs a lot of reform. Bernie's great at telling you what's wrong with Wall Street. How those fat cat millionaire and billionaires just rape this country, never pay taxes. These doggone banks, they just keep getting bigger. They caused the mortgage crisis. People lost their homes, and then they swooped in and bought those homes for pennies on that. It's horrible. Bernie can make the case on how horrible Wall Street is. But you know why he won't be able to reform them? Because he paints them all with the same brush. He sees them all as crooked and evil. And they're not. They're not. Wall Street helps people retire. Wall Street helps people send their kids to college. Wall Street helps people start businesses. Wall Street helps companies develop new vaccines that save your life. So they're not all horrible. And there are some people on Wall Street who do want reform, believe it or not. There are people on Wall Street who would like to see Wall Street reformed. But Bernie has no allies there because he condemns them all as evil. And you can't do that. If you want to reform Wall Street, you need the help of Wall Street. If you want to change the direction of this country, the direction this country is going, you need the help of Republicans and, yes, Trump supporters. That's good stuff. That was good stuff right there. I like what I said. Pat myself on the back. I left out a couple of clips from Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, for some reason, came out on the side of Vladimir Putin and this whole Ukraine thing. I was going to talk about it. I had a couple of clips. I'll save them. I have a feeling we'll be talking about Ukraine again. So I'll save them. I also want to apologize for a mistake I made in a prior show. Oh, listen to that. That's good stuff. Turn that down. I did a show entitled, Is the Media Evil? Good downloads on that. People enjoyed that. Thank you again. But I made a point of saying I wasn't going to name the podcast host from the clips I was playing from that show. I said, I'm not here to judge people. I'm not going to name people. I don't like doing that if I'm criticizing. I avoid naming names. But I did that later on in the show when I was talking about a host of MSNBC. I named her. So I screwed up there. I went out of my way to say I'm not going to name one guy, but then I named another person. So my apologies on that. Thank you to the listener who pointed that mistake out to me. I appreciate it. Never do that again. Follow me on Twitter at @comparison_show, @comparison_show. Visit the website, www.thecomparisongroup.com, www.thecomparisongroup.com. You can find past episodes. Oh, I was able to clean up the website a little bit. If you listen on your cell phone, I have a button there to go directly to the podcast episodes, and they're dated. I'm still working on it for the desktop version. There's a little glitch there. I'm going to try and get that straightened out. But it is easier than having to scroll all the way down on your cell phone. The shows are still there if you do want to scroll, but there's also a button you can click on the website. I'll put up the article from CNN that explains the Ukraine situation. If anyone wants to read over that, check that out. In the meantime, you can listen on the Podbreed network of podcasts. Download the app. Listen on Google Podcast, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, or iTunes. I got to get one single place where people can go and listen. I'm sick of naming all these names where the podcast is. I got to get like Joe Rogan. Get myself a contract with Spotify. That's what I need. Can anyone out there help me out? I know I got regular listeners. There's no one that can help me out getting a job podcasting somewhere? Please. Trying to entertain you. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.